everybody, how you doing? Hope you've had a good week. It's Friday yet again, and time just seems to be marching past faster than I can keep up with it. But that's life, I guess, huh? Alrighty. Well, our shout out today goes to Motorcycle Wild Camper, or Motorcycle Wild Camping. Oh, I think it's Motorcycle Wild Camper. Anyway, I'll put the correct name up in the bubble here, and a link to his channel down below so you can check him out. Interesting fellow, and lots to learn from him, whether you have a motorcycle or whether you go camping or not. So you can learn a lot. So check him out, Motorcycle Wild Camper. And another quick shout out today to David Hotaling. If you want to know more about R.E.D Friday, I'm going to put a link down in the description to his channel to a video where he gives you the history of R.E.D Friday. Remember, everyone deployed. So be sure to check that out as well. Alrighty, are you ready for story time? We're back to the Sherwood Forest to follow Robin, and today's chapter is How Robin Hood Met Little John. And so Robin Hood's fame continued to spread. It reached even Maid Marian within the great fortified walls of St. Mary's Abbey. Often when the abbot, who hated the bold outlaw, spoke of Robin's daring exploits, Marian would hide a smile. Poor Marian had little enough to smile at these days. Her father, Sir Richard of Lee, had not been heard of for a long while, and everyone told her he was dead. Meanwhile, the abbot was her guardian and had legal power to treat her as though she were his own daughter. Marian knew that the abbot was planning to give her in marriage to a rich nobleman called Sir Roger, who was known by the nickname of Roger the Cruel. Marian could only pray for her dear father's return and hold fast to the belief that he was still alive. For inside the walls of the abbey she was little better than a prisoner. Robin Hood knew nothing of this. It was high summer, and the birds sang gaily in the leafy glades of Sherwood Forest. Yesterday the band had relieved a rich convoy of thieving bankers of a sack of gold, and better yet, a cask or two of fine Chardonnay wine. A fine stag hung ready for roasting in the woodland larder, and the band of men was working up an appetite by practicing archery or playing at quarterstaves. Playing at quarterstaves consisted of mock battles with long oak sticks or cudgels. It was a rough game in which the loser often escaped black and blue with bruises. Robin was not only the best bowman in Sherwood Forest and the most skillful swordsman, he was also the band's champion with a quarterstaff. He was twirling his quarterstaff lightly between thumb and forefinger that afternoon, and thinking how pleasant life was. He had left the others and wandered off by himself down a narrow path which followed the side of a stream where silver trout darted away at the sight of his shadow. He hummed cheerfully to himself, feeling on top of the world. An outlaw perhaps he was, but in Sherwood Forest he was king. The path wound down suddenly to cross a broad stream. The water was deep at this point, and there was a long log across it, which served as a bridge. Robin stepped lightly on this narrow bridge before he saw that another man, a stranger, had at the same moment stepped on the far side. Neither Robin nor the stranger at first saw each other. When they did, both were almost halfway across. "Step back, friend," cried Robert, "and let your betters cross first." "And who, may I ask, are you?" asked the other sarcastically. "Step back yourself." The stranger was a giant of a man. He must have been nearly 7 feet tall. He loomed head and shoulders over Robin, and he too carried a huge quarterstaff. He handled it as though it were a quill pen. "Out of my way, little fellow," Robin said, angered by the giant's lazy smile, "or else I shall be forced to push you back." You? The stranger shrugged good-naturedly. You and who else? Back, fool, before I lose my temper. I see I shall have to teach you a painful lesson, Robin said, beginning to twirl his oak stick more rapidly. The bigger you are, the bigger the splash you will make as I knock you into the river. The huge man continued to smile. His fists were like haunches of venison as they grasped his staff more tightly. I hate to do this to you, but since you insist... And he struck at Robin Hood, a blow which would have felled an ox. Robin caught it skillfully on the side of his own staff and returned the blow with interest. He caught the giant square on the head, but instead of toppling over, he merely shook himself, still grinning. I see that you are not inexperienced in the game of quarterstaves, he said. Now let me teach you a new trick or two. And he landed Robin a whack in the ribs that made the dust fly. For the next 5 minutes the two men balanced themselves on the narrow, slippery log over the stream. Blow followed blow, making such a racket that the very squirrels in the trees stopped to listen. Take that, Robin shouted, beginning to enjoy the battle. And that, cried his opponent, laughing good-humoredly. Such a battle even Sherwood Forest had seldom seen. The woods echoed with the sound. A handful of Robin's men came running just in time to see the end of it. Robin had lurched forward, swinging his staff valiantly, in an effort to finish the business once and for all. The giant, amazingly light-footed for his size, stepped back, made a feint with one end of his stick, and brought the other end down on Robin's head. Robin turned, slipped, and fell splashed into the middle of the river. He might have drowned, for he had little breath left for swimming. Had not his recent enemy at once jumped in after him, the huge man picked Robin up by the scruff of the neck and brought him safely to shore. They both sat on the bank for a moment, trying to catch their breath. You put up a good fight, the stranger admitted generously. Perhaps, Robin grinned, but the best man won. If you would like to cross the bridge first, do so with my blessing. They both laughed until they were out of breath again. But who are you? Robin asked finally. My name is John, the giant said, and I have come to Sherwood Forest to look for someone. You see, I overslept this morning, and the man I work for ordered me to be given 40 lashes with the whip. I took the whip and lashed him instead. Therefore, I am looking for someone else to work for. I am looking for a certain Robin Hood. I much fear that you've found him, said Robin. You? None other. Wet and much worse for wear, Robin laughed. But Robin Hood in person, and at your service. They clasped hands. From that day on, John became Robin's right-hand man and closest friend. The band at once nicknamed him Little John, and that night around the fire Robin Hood himself described with much glee how Little John had given their leader a sound thrashing. So there you go. That's how John and Robin met. And I think I'd rather just meet somebody and say, well, nice to meet you, and shake hands, rather than beat each other silly with quarterstaves. But yeah, back in the days of Sherwood Forest, that's the way she went, I guess. Hope you enjoyed today's chapter. Next Friday, we'll be reading how Little John met his match. There we go. Somebody who must be even better than him and Robin Hood. So we'll get to that next Friday. Hope you've enjoyed today's chapter. Well, now it's time for the Groaner of the Week. Well, many years ago, and this kind of dates it was when automatic transmissions in vehicles were first introduced. And Cadillac put out a wonderful new Eldorado coupe, which had the automatic transmission in it. And the local dealership displayed this beauty of a car proudly in their showroom window. And the owner of the dealership decided he was going to do something because he knew he couldn't lose. So he put a sign in front of the car in the window saying, if you can beat this car, it's yours. details inside. Well, of course, many people came in and looked at the car and all decided no, with this big powerful V8 engine and this fancy new transmission, they probably couldn't beat it. Then one day, a very tiny man came in. He was about 5'1", probably weighed 100 pounds if you filled his pockets with rocks and soaked them down with a hose. And he looked he looked the big car over and kind of hummed to himself. Well, the owner of the dealership saw this fellow and came out and said, "You interested in buying the car?" "No." "No." "Well, why are you looking at it then?" "Well, I'm trying to decide if I can outrun it." "Oh, what kind of car do you have?" "I don't have a car." "What? Well, how do you plan to outrun it if you don't have a car?" "I am a runner. I plan to outrun it on my feet." The owner just cracks up laughing. "You gotta be kidding. There's no way you could outrun a car. You couldn't outrun a Model T, let alone outrun this wonderful car." "We shall see," said the man. And the owner says, "You're serious?" And the little man says, "Yes." And the owner says, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, the local racetrack just to the west of town there, if you don't know where it is, easy to find, follow the signs. We'll have a race. If you can outrun this car, then just like the sign says, it's yours. Free and clear. But if you can't outrun it, then you have to buy it. Full price. No haggling. Full sticker price." The little man looks at the car one more time and says, "Deal," and he puts out his hand, and they shake on it. Well, 9 o'clock the next morning, the owner of the auto dealership shows up driving the car, pulls up to the starting line, and sits there for a few minutes. It's a couple of minutes early, and then right on 9 o'clock, right on the dot, here's this little fellow shows up, and he's wearing a tank top, and he's wearing running shorts and socks and running shoes. He smiles at the dealer of the automobile dealership and says, "Are you ready?" And the owner of the dealership laughs and says, "Well, yeah, I'm ready." So the fellow that works at the raceway gets out there and he gives the green flag, and they both take off. Well, the dealer is driving along in the Cadillac, and he's doing about 5 miles an hour, and he looks over, and here's this little fellow. He's just jogging right along beside the car, not even breaking a sweat. So the dealer gives the car a little more gas and eases it up to 10 miles an hour. And he glances in his rearview mirrors, no sign of no sign of this little guy. And then he looks over to the side, and here's the little guy. He's just tootling along right there, 10 miles an hour, right beside the car, no sweat. And the owner of the dealership thinks, well, we could be here all day. This is ridiculous. So he steps on the gas, takes up to 50 miles an hour, looks in his rearview mirror, can see the runner behind him, and he looks again, and the guy's getting closer. He looks at the speedometer, he's doing 50, and all of a sudden, phew, this little runner goes running right past him. And he looks at the speedometer, it's at 50, and thinks, well, what's wrong with the car? So he stomps on it, floors it. Pretty soon he starts catching up with this little guy running, and he's looking down, and he's 75 miles an hour, and he's just barely catching up to this little fella, and this fella's just running all out. So he pushes the pedal right down to the metal, and the speedometer goes up, and he looks over, he's at 100 miles an hour, and here's this little guy right beside him and actually starting to pass him a little bit. I can't believe this, and the needle's creeping up, and suddenly he hits 110, and he looks over, and the little guy is just to the front of him off the left-hand fender, and he glances back down at the speedometer, and there's this loud bang, thump, 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 and he looks around everywhere. He can't see the little guy. And he looks in the rearview mirrors, and all he can see by the side of the track is this big cloud of dust. And he goes, oh my God, what's happened? And he slows the car down. I mean, you're 110, it takes a while to slow that kind of car down, right? And he slows it down and gets to where he can make a U-turn and drives back along the track. And finally sees a leg sticking out of the ditch. Oh my gosh, I hit the guy. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And he gets out of the car and runs over, and sure enough, in the ditch, there's this little man. He's just mangled, just in a heap and a twist of arms and legs. And the owner runs over to him to see what he can do, and the owner says, "Are you all right? Are you right?" Yeah, I think I'll be all right. I can't believe you're still alive. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Why? Why are you sorry? Well, we're doing 110. I can't believe you're running that fast. And he says, and then I must have hit you because I glanced down at the speedometer and I heard a bang, and you were gone. So I said, I'm sorry. I must have swerved and hit you with the car, and I'm so sorry. No, you didn't hit me with the car. It's okay. Well, what do you mean I didn't hit you with the car? How on earth did this happen? Look at you. You're all mangled up in the ditch. I mean, if I didn't hit you with the car, what happened? Oh, man. Have you ever had a tennis shoe blow out at 110 miles an hour? There you go. We never heard whether he got the car or not, but he sure gave it a good try. Anyway, have a great weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday with whatever we decide to do then. Have a great weekend. Take care, stay safe, and God bless.